Casey about live streaming? We're live streaming, so if you have friends at home, tell them we're on live and we are going to be on the whole entire message right here in this lovely front. You don't have friends, it's just a negative thought, don't believe it, okay? Just kidding. No, I'm not kidding, but, okay, really quickly, I want to say a couple things. First of all, I'm not as nice as Chris. Second of all, I have a lot to say and a little bit of time to say it, so. Third of all, I have ADHD, so if I hear conversations, I'm going to become a part of them. So, let's not do that. Let's not talk back to me because that will become part of my brain because that's how it works, and I can't handle that. I have a lot to say. My mental health journey has been really cool, and it's still going. So, we are talking about mental health, we're talking about negative thoughts, but first we're going to talk about ants. Yes, the insect. Ants. Not our aunts and uncles. Ants, the insect. We're going to talk about ants because, let me get out from in front of the screen. How about that? Alright. We're going to talk about ants because ants are crazy. If you guys knew me and Chris when we first got married, we lived in this house that was old, it was cute, but it required a lot of maintenance. And we had a lot of little creatures because it was old. So we basically learned that we were going to have to manage that because we had an old house. So luckily my parents were the landlords, so I could just call them with a bunch of those issues. But we did try to manage them on our own, mainly insects like ants, but also mice. It was not cool. So we also had these things. Do you know what these are? These are called camel crickets, and until today, I have thought they were called jumping, I don't know, spider crickets or camel spiders or something, I don't know. But these have nothing to do with what I'm talking about tonight. Can y'all see this? Y'all see that thing? They have absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about tonight, but just look at them. They deserve a slide. We'll just appreciate that for a second. I used to walk in our bathroom, find these things. I used to walk in our living room, find these things. They blended in with our hardwood floor, and I would just they would just be there, but they jump. I don't like them. It has nothing to do with it. I just said that. It has nothing to do with this message. I'm not as nice as Chris, remember? Okay, so this has nothing to do with the message. It just deserves a slide. So give it up for the camel cricket, and then we're gonna move on. All right, so we had ants. We learned to manage these ants all the time, but one time, Chris was cleaning the kitchen. We had this tiny little kitchen. You can see it right here. It's pretty cute, a little fuzzy, but it was tiny, okay? And Chris is big. So if Chris did the dishes, he was in there by himself, especially when I was pregnant, because that didn't work out. One night he was in there and he was cleaning dishes, saw a couple ants. That was normal. We had all the stuff to spray. We had a girl who would come and spray for us, and so we had all the stuff to manage ants. So he managed them, kills them. We had some cupcakes and cookies, I think, sitting out, and he put it on top of the microwave. We went to bed. Chris woke up the next morning, and they were all in the cupcake thing. So we managed them again, like we knew how. I was still asleep. He went to work earlier than me, and he threw away the cupcakes. Well, when I got up, I thought he had spilled coffee grounds on the floor, on the counter, in our coffee cups, in our cabinets, in our silverware drawers, literally everywhere. In our pots and pans, it was everywhere. And they were not coffee grounds, they were ants. It was almost so many ants that they felt unmanageable. It felt like this might just be easier to just adopt them as pets. I don't know, I'm not trying to clean up all the, where do you even start? Where do you start with that many ants? Where do you start to clean them up? So obviously we cleaned them up because I don't want to live with ants, but think about how miserable it would have been, but eventually would have become normal in our house if I would have just decided, this is too much for me to handle. This is too much for me to clean up, so I am just going to let these ants live here, and I'm just gonna deal with it. Have you ever been in a situation where something feels a little bit too unmanageable or too messy or too much to deal with it? You have. But something you're in every single day that's like that are your negative thoughts. They are too much for us to handle, so we let them control us. And the reason they control us is because they're automatic. And that's what we're talking about today. Ants, but not insects. So my insect stories are over. We're talking about automatic negative thoughts. Add the S on the end with your imagination. Automatic negative thoughts are negative thoughts that enter our mind without knocking on the door. They are thoughts that are just intrusive. They just come into our head right when we look in the mirror. Tell me one person in here who has never looked at themselves in a picture or looked in the mirror and not thought something negative about themselves. Not thought something negative about themselves. Okay. All right, so if you raised your hand, that means you're ignoring and you're stuffing the negative thoughts that you have. You have them still though, because we all have them. And guess what? God made us that way. God made us allowed to feel negative and positive emotion. But with negative emotion, it's a little bit more scary. It's a little bit more unmanageable. It's not as enjoyable to feel, so we don't manage them like we should. They're automatic because the more we tell ourselves something over and over and over again, since you were a little kid, whether that be formed from any sort of insecurity or any sort of parent or any sort of family atmosphere, whatever it was, whatever circumstance it was formed from, we have negative thoughts we think about in our head and then we tell ourselves because we have told ourselves it for so long that they just become habit. So when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we tell ourselves what we think about ourselves. And it's normally not positive, especially first thing in the morning. They're negative because we live in a world where perfection is the standard. And money can make you happy, likes can make you happy, followers can make you happy, views can make you happy, going viral can make you happy, having a good job can make you happy. Things can make you happy in this world. We have a manifest culture right now that says that if you can think it, you can do it. That's great, but you're not powerful enough to make that happen. So I'm sorry if you think you can manifest. If you're living with Jesus Christ in your heart, you're not manifesting anything. He's in control. It's self-righteous of us to think that we are going to manifest something by our own will, because that is not how it works. So, if you have Jesus in your heart, you are giving him the credit. You can work hard. You can manifest an idea and work really hard to make it work. And if that's God's will for your life and it's lining up with his desires, then that might be what he helps you do. But we have to leave that up to God. And so the thoughts that don't even enter our mind, that are not even welcome into our head, those are the automatic negative thoughts that we're going to be thinking about today. The first thing I want to say, while you guys are still really quiet, y'all are literally going freaking awesome right now. I'm so proud of y'all. Oh, the live stream, they were there. Oh, I forgot you were on. Okay, so, just lost my train of thought now. So, it's nobody's fault. I looked at the live stream. The first thing I want to say is automatic negative thoughts. Normally, if we are not intentional about it, make us think negatively about ourselves, make us feel negative emotions. It makes us act negatively towards ourselves. This can lead to very, very, very deep-rooted issues like depression and anxiety and suicide. Suicide rates in teens right now is higher than it's ever been. Even in young adults, like me and Chris's age, it is very, very, very common. And so I just want you to know that, first of all, you're not alone. Second of all, you have a voice, and you need to use it. Because no matter what you feel, no matter what you think about yourself, the truth is your life matters. And your life matters to more people than just you, and it matters to you if you give it a chance. But right now, you might not feel like giving it a chance. And guess what? I was there. I was there. And I was there while I was here. And none of you guys knew it. Because I was really good at hiding it. And that's what you guys are good at doing too. So, if somebody in this room is dealing with something that is life-altering like that, or you're having negative thoughts, or you're having thoughts about suicide, we just had a beautiful Miss USA, Miss North Carolina, commit suicide on Monday. And she, in New York City, she had shown 0 signs of depression. She had not shown anything. And so it's okay if that's how you feel. And it's probably more normal and common than you think. It's not a bad thing. It just needs attention. So if you feel that way, deeply feel that way, and you haven't said anything to somebody, voice it. Talk to me, talk to Chris, talk to your small group leader. Small group leaders, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions, because that's what's gonna save our lives. It might be uncomfortable, it might feel a little weird, but don't be afraid to ask those questions, especially if you notice somebody with those kind of tendencies. Don't be afraid to ask, because sometimes students might not feel comfortable coming out and say it. So anyways, off my soapbox. It's an important soapbox though, so that's why I got on it. So we're back to the ants, not the insects, the automatic negative thoughts. So, you're not alone, your life matters. You have these automatic negative thoughts because it has become such a habit, because you have never changed the way you think about yourself. And so, like I said before, the more often we think about a thought, the more likely we are to think about it again and again and again and again. So it becomes a habit, which makes it automatic. It doesn't even take effort to come into your brain. So, what I want to talk about today, what I want to talk about right now, actually, is something happened to me yesterday. Now, I want this to show you that I am well into my mental health journey. I have been through a lot of clinical therapy, a lot of struggle. I have been in really low places. I'm still on that journey, but I can manage my mental health a lot better. I know my worth now. I know that I'm loved more than I have to believe I am, because God's love for us, we can't comprehend, which is why we don't believe it sometimes, because we can't comprehend it. And so that's where faith comes in. You have to just believe that you deserve love. You have to believe that you are loved more than you can imagine in order to have the faith in Jesus to move past that. Because if you're stuck on if you're truly loved or not, that's gonna stop you right there. And the enemy does all of that stuff too, to try to get you to not move forward with your relationship with Christ. If you don't have that relationship with Christ, that's also okay. A personal relationship with Christ takes time, it takes energy, and it doesn't make things easier. You have an enemy against you when you accept Jesus into your heart, so you just have to put on armor. You have to be able to fight those temptations and the stuff Satan throws at you. If you don't have Jesus in your heart, come find one of us too. If you're thinking about that, if you have questions about it, you don't have to say that you want to ask him into your heart. You just want to ask questions about it, come ask us. We're not going to judge you. We've all been there too. Your behavior doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have a relationship with Jesus Christ. When you start to have a relationship with Jesus Christ and you start to line up your will with his will, and you start to pray for his desires in your heart, that's when you're going to start seeing your behavior change. So don't start with the behavior, start with the relationship. That's what we try to do here too. We start with the relationship, that changes the behavior. But starting with the behavior is a little bit backwards. And so, once we get that relationship with Jesus, that's what he wants with us. He wants us to have a good life. That is when we are going to start to be able to manage these negative things that come into our mind, because these negative things that come into our mind, they're not going away. So, on my mental health journey, I just want you guys to see that I still have negative thoughts. And some of this stuff is a little bit depressing, but I'm being vulnerable. Y'all gonna learn a lot about me tonight. All right? Y'all judge me? No? All right, cool. It's fine if you do. I would judge me too, probably. All right, so yesterday. I don't even have this written down. I hope I remember it. Okay, yesterday. Oh my gosh. Yesterday morning, I woke up 4:45 because I cycle in the mornings. I go to indoor cycling because I don't have enough time to do it. I don't want to go that early, but I do go. Well, if I don't show up, I have to pay. So I make Chris make sure I'm awake, because I don't want to pay to not go to class. So I told Chris, make sure I don't sleep through my alarm. Well, Chris had woke up right before me to make sure I was awake. And as soon as he leaned over to see if I was awake, my alarm went off. So I jolted my head up and I knocked him in the head, the back of my head, his mouth. I was mad at him. Why was your head over my head? And it probably hurt him too. He was probably like, oh, I don't know, I'm sorry. But after that, I was like, whatever, it's fine. I gotta get up. Lean my legs over the bed, and a little child is sitting right beside our bed. Little child just sitting there whimpering at 5 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so I was like, all right, already in my head. It's gonna be a crap day, here it goes. Well, here goes everything, just falling apart. Already, nothing had fallen apart. I just was already having a bad morning. Hadn't had coffee yet, that's always a bad thing for me, at least. So, go to cycle bar, I'm determined to have a good day, but really in my mind, I wasn't determined to have a good day. I was just like, what else is gonna happen? So I get home, And I'm like, this is gonna be fine. It's gonna be good. So I go get my coffee. The coffee filter had folded in half. And this time, there were coffee grinds everywhere. They were all in my coffee though. So when I poured my coffee, just as many coffee grinds went in as my coffee. And I was like, okay. So it's like, we're gonna make it positive. Dump it out, make a new pot. Get my coffee, go take a shower. No one's awake yet, it's pretty great. Chris had already left to go to the gym too. And I knew while we're early birds, we're really not, but we just have kids, so we can't do anything at normal times. But go upstairs, take a shower. When I get out of the shower, our dog Hootie, I don't know, y'all probably know what he looks like, but was eating my shorts, okay? It's 7:30 a.m., all right? He's eating my shorts. This is like fifth thing already, and I'm like, all right, what else? So, what else? Here it comes. So, I go downstairs, I'm like, it's fine, just shorts, I can buy new ones. That's what I always do, because he always does this. So, go downstairs, drink my coffee. Iris comes downstairs about 2.5 minutes later. And she's mad at me because I didn't let her finish watching Encanto because she wanted to go to sleep. So she's mad at me. So I was like, it's okay, come snuggle and I can drink my coffee, you can watch Encanto. It's fine, it'll be great. Enchanto, is that what it's called? You know what I say? I say Encanto. I say Encanto, and I walk around my house saying Encanto and Maribel, like that. All right, Enchanto. I think it means enchanted. I don't really know. Is that? Okay, I need to just stop. I need to stop on my head. All right, distractions, becoming part of your conversations. Okay, so she's mad because she can't watch that movie. So we turn it on. Well, guess what? The internet wasn't working, so we can't watch it. But then I go to log into our internet app, and all of this actually happened. I'm not just making this up. I had to add it into my message because I was like, this can't go without being spoken about. I go to log into my internet app. I like that kind of stuff, so I'm like, I got this, I can fix this. The password's not working, and the Face ID's not working. First world problems. Third world problems don't have that problems. We do, because why would I get mad that my Face ID isn't working? Well, I'm used to that happening, so I was just like, it should work. So I was starting to get mad. Iris was mad because the movie wouldn't work. Said to log into my browser. Well, I opened up my computer, and the internet wouldn't work on there either because the internet wasn't working. So we watched Daniel Tiger, and she was satisfied. I take a sip of coffee, and our smoke alarm starts chirping upstairs. Everybody's still asleep at this point, but only for about 30 seconds more because the smoke alarm starts going off, and she gets out of bed, starts crying, comes downstairs, and she's mad. So I have cold coffee, the smoke alarm's going off, those batteries are a pain to change. I don't even know if I have the batteries to change those because they're weird batteries. Luckily I did, that was a good thing. But I went to start changing the batteries. Everyone was mad at me for not getting her dinner, which is what she calls breakfast. So I go downstairs, they do have manners, but when it comes to food, they get hangry. So go downstairs, get her breakfast. She wanted yogurt and a banana. Get her that and apple juice. We didn't have apple juice. That was another problem. That made her mad. So chocolate milk saved the day, and when I walked into the living room, I stepped on a banana. Have you ever stepped on a banana? Feels like snot. Doesn't feel good. After all that stuff, it's already 8:30 in the morning, and I just stepped on a banana after all that stuff. So, stepped on a banana, and I was like, you know what? Let's go have a play date. So, we go have a play date with some of our sweet friends, and we have the best time. And after we have the play date, we go home. Chris comes home to save the day, and I'm like, thank God this bad day is over. But I get in my car to go somewhere quiet to read this message. And when I get out at where I'm going, I lock my keys in my car. Probably the second time in my life I've ever done that. Probably since I was in college. And I looked at my keys in the window, and I was like, all right, what do I do? So I knew I was gonna be there for a while, so I just called Chris, and I was like, at some point, just bring the key up here, the extra one. Luckily we had one, that would have been a kicker. But when I got to where I was going, I wrote down the things I had told myself throughout that day. These are not things I believed about myself, but these are things I had told myself. Some of them have nothing to do with what happened. Some of them do have things to do with what happened. But these are true things I told myself. Nothing triggered this. Things triggered it, circumstances triggered it, but these are the things that just crossed my mind. These were the automatic negative thoughts that crossed my mind. Now, there was plenty more because we have a lot of thoughts during the day. Does anybody relate to any of these thoughts? Yeah. It's everyone, and the only reason that we think we don't is because we choose not to see them. We think that negative thoughts are so bad that we choose not to become aware of them. So what if we could interrupt this cycle of negative thinking? What if we could interrupt it like a roller coaster, like take it off the tracks and make it go a different direction? What if we could interrupt that negative thought cycle to make it positive? All right, where am I? All right, so if we interrupt the cycle of negative thinking, that means we have to change something about what we're doing. Because right now, the automatic negative thoughts are not working out. So the first step to changing something is becoming aware of it. Awareness is the first step. I don't know, I think that's maybe like a saying or something. But it really is. Awareness is the first step to changing something about yourself or changing something about really anything. So when we become aware of something, it is seeing and accepting that something is present, and it is also, being aware is also examining what thoughts in your head and how it makes you feel. And then what you do with it, we're gonna talk about in a minute. But becoming aware is just saying, like you're laying in the grass, just like picture this. Let's get a little chatty, I need y'all to picture something. All right, you're laying in the grass, quiet, by yourself, which means you're not talking to anybody, because you're by yourself. Yeah, by yourself. I talk to myself too sometimes, it's fine. All right, you're laying in the grass, on your back, looking at the clouds, watching them float by. What if we chose to look at our negative thoughts that way? Laying in the grass, watching our negative thoughts, they exist, but we aren't doing nothing with those clouds. I mean, when they start raining on us, we go inside. So when our negative thoughts start raining on us, why we sit there and let it rain on us? We should go inside. But we have to learn how. Because that is right. Rain is good, clouds are good, but negative thoughts in the same way are good because they help us develop, they teach us things, but we have to start controlling them and not letting them control us because we are just being controlled by whatever we're told to let control us. And the reality is we have more control over our minds than we think. So the first step in changing is to become aware, watch them, see them, just know that they're there. Even write them down. Like think like, oh, I just said this to myself. Like even out loud, like why did you say that to yourself? Well, how did that make me feel? And so become aware of what you said to yourself. Become aware of what someone else said to you and what you said to yourself after someone said something to you. You gave them control to make you think something about yourself. When really, they probably said something to you because that's how they feel about themselves. That's how negative thoughts work. It's kind of weird, but I didn't make it up. So we have to examine our lives. Examining our lives means that we are becoming aware. You guys know who Socrates is? Yeah. Socrates, not Socrates. Socrates. This is so distracting right here. It's fine. Socrates was a Greek philosopher. I'm not very intelligent, but I learned about this. Socrates? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we're talking about Socrates, but I'm not going to talk that much about him. Socrates, I don't even think he believed in God. I'm pretty sure he didn't. But he had a great philosophy. He actually was a Greek philosopher. Philosophy is the study of examining fundamental questions, I think, about life. So basically, you're like trying to determine your thought process. You're trying to figure out why things happen the way that they do. And I'm a very curious person, so like, I feel like me and Socrates might have been like buds. I don't know. But Socrates said the unexamined life is not worth living. Now, this does not mean if you are not examining your life, you're not worth living. That's not what that means. That's what it says. What he means is we are not living a life that we are deserving of. We're not living a life with the worth that we deserve if we are not examining the things that are happening to our lives. Because if we're not examining things that are happening to our lives, if we're not examining the things that are happening to our souls, then we are not going to be able to control anything that happens to us, and our circumstances are going to control everything that happens to us. And guess what? As much as some of you want to be a victim to your circumstances, you're not. You're not. Not one person in here. Because guess what? God is good, and his goodness is heavenly, His goodness is not earthly. His goodness is heavenly, so that means he promises us a place in eternity, in heaven. That doesn't mean he's not going to take my children from me before I die. And if he does, he's still good. And I have to trust that. My human nature says that's not good. That makes me sad. That makes me want to vomit. That makes me want to not live. But guess what? God is still good no matter what your circumstances are. So, be aware, examine your life. Be like Socrates, kind of. I don't know. He was passionate about examining your soul, not focusing on what we have and what we buy and how many followers we have. I don't think they had that back then, but if they had TikTok, they'd be like, I don't care how many followers you have or views or anything. So, awareness. The second way to change is willingness. You have to be willing to love yourself, but you have to be willing to love others also by loving yourself. If you love yourself, you're not going to be making other people feel bad about themselves. If you love yourself, you're not going to be trying to bring other people down with you. So willing to love yourself requires you believing that you deserve love. A little confusing, right? But if we believe we deserve love, then we can start to transform our thinking to show ourselves more love. We will be more willing to love ourselves, which means when these negative thoughts come into our brain, when these ants creep their way in, get unmanageable, guess what? You know what I did with these thoughts yesterday? I know that I'm willing to love myself, and I know I'm worthy of love. So, I didn't believe these thoughts. I want to believe some of them. Some of them I'm like, oh God, that's a little touchy. Like, mom bod? Y'all don't want that. It's touchy, it's insecure, and it's insecurity. Our insecurity causes those things, but we get the choice to believe that or not. And also, this does not happen overnight. I just want y'all to know, I've been doing this I've been on my own mental health training for 4 years, since I had kids. I thought everything was rainbows and butterflies until the children arrived, and everything changed. I know some moms out there are like, yeah, I know what these moms are. So, I just want to talk to you real quick about circumstances. I'm going to read some scripture out of Philippians. The book of Philippians is actually a book of joy written by a man named Paul. You guys know Paul?
Yeah.
Say, hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
That's like a thing, isn't it? So, Paul is writing this letter to the people of Philippi, and he is writing this letter while he is in prison. Let me just go ahead and tell you, I was actually going to write something out, but I didn't. My letter to the people of Philippi would not sound like this if I was in prison. I would be like, are y'all telling me I'm a disciple of Jesus, and I am a follower of Jesus, and he is literally, like, I'm his man, like, I'm not his person, and, like, I'm in prison? No, like, that's got to be his fault. I got to blame somebody for that. I got to blame these mean prison guards. Like, I got to do something. But you know what? Paul didn't focus on that. Paul didn't focus on his circumstances. What Paul did instead was tell us that we must fix our mind. Fix our mind means that we don't let it wander. We don't let it wander, and you have the choice to do that. You have the choice, and it does take time because habits take time. That is why you have automatic negative thoughts. You can have automatic positive thoughts that follow those if you start to make it a habit. So, what Paul says is, and now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true, what is honorable, what is right, what is pure, what is lovely, what is admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Now, if we look at the slide, we don't have to go back, Michael, but if you remember the things that I had said about myself yesterday, it wasn't any of this. It wasn't any of this. But the third step in choosing to change is to replace the things on that slide that I said about myself. Replace my reactions to those things to this. Start fixing my thoughts on things that are true. And you don't decide what's true. Because if you have Jesus living in your heart, the truth is right here. The truth is in your hands. But you have to choose to open this book. Because God's not magic. He ain't going to come down here and open this for you. He ain't going to magically Amazon Prime you a Bible to your door. You got to put in work. You have to put in work. And when you start putting in work, then you can maybe get some Amazon Prime blessings. Like, you gotta start putting in the work because God's not gonna come down here like abracadabra and start handing you stuff like you're on the naughty and nice list because you did something good or bad, and start saying like, all right, well, you did this good, so you get this cool thing, and you weren't very good, so you get coal. Like, no, that's not how it works. The way that God works is he loves you regardless, but he wants a relationship with you. And that doesn't mean he wants you to just be miserable living by his rules. That's not what he means. He wants you to have a good life. That's why we have rules. That's why we have laws. That's why we have boundaries. They're not even rules. They're boundaries. And he gives us boundaries because we can't just free for all over the place. We won't have a good life. Because if we're living for this world, just like Paul says, just like basically like Socrates says too, if we're living for things in this world, they're going to fall short every single time. It's never going to satisfy us. No person is going to satisfy you. And can I give you some advice? Figure that out before you get married. Okay? Right, Chris?
Very true.
But if you don't figure it out before you get married, we might can help you at some point. I don't know. Just kidding. Anyways, Chris is easy love. I'm not. Okay, my notes. All right, so distracted. Chris distracted me. Gosh, I don't know why I do this to myself. All right, so change begins when we decide stop letting our circumstances control us. Oh, I know what I was going to say. It was good. Let me tell you something. If you think that someone else is going to come into your life and make you feel good enough, you're wrong. When you decide to be good enough for yourself, then someone else is going to be good enough for you, and you won't need that from them. But it will be really cool to feel that from them. Because if you're good enough for yourself, then you're not going to look to outward circumstances. If God is enough for you, you're not going to look for outward circumstances to fill you up. Because that's what we do in this world. But guess what? We're not going to get to the end of our life and be like, oh yeah, I finally got perfect. Like, no, that's not going to happen. So it's in every single day you wake up, put your feet on the floor, and you choose. You choose to allow these negative thoughts to come into your head. You choose to be willing to love yourself more than to let yourself believe them. And then you start to replace them with more positive things that are more excellent, that are more worthy of praise. And then I am not just standing up here showing you slides. I do this, like do it. Because y'all are struggling. Mental health is real. And guess what? Something else, I'm gonna save it for a minute. I gotta save it. All right, so replacing our thoughts means choosing to fix our thoughts on things that are excellent, worthy of praise. But let me tell you how I have not done this. I have chosen to lose control in my anger and in the thoughts that I've chosen to believe for so long that I've damaged stuff. I've damaged our house. I've punched our refrigerator. I've put a hole in our wall. I've done that, and I'm not laughing about it. You guys think it's funny because you're teenagers and like, oh, okay, well, I did that too on top of the straightener, like threw it in my wall. Like, no, I'm an adult, I'm 31 years old, and I put a hole in my wall because I let my negative thought stir up a negative emotion, and then guess what I didn't do? I didn't choose to let that emotion pass like a cloud. I chose to believe it. So when I believed it about myself, I hated myself so bad that you know who I blamed? Everyone else except for me. And everybody else was at fault, not me. I'm still learning this, but it's very important to know that you control your actions, you control the things that you do, not your circumstances. Your circumstances don't get a free out of jail card because you don't get that when you have bad circumstances. Your family life, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your friendships, she hurt me, she said this about me, he wasn't nice to me, like whatever, like he tried to fight me, like I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. That doesn't get to determine if, first of all, if God is good. It also does not get to determine if you act the way that you act. You get to determine if you act the way that you act. And so what you do in reaction to your negative thoughts that produce negative emotions, and you react to those things, that is on you. No one else is doing that for you. We have more control than we think. We just don't think we have a lot of control. So we either lose control, like I used to do recently, more recently than you probably realize, or we can start to choose control. And when we start choosing control, we start to get a peace that Paul talks about after he says, for us to fix our eyes on things that are excellent and worthy of praise. We start to get a peace that is from God. A peace that is not from this world, because this is not God's world. Believe it or not, this is not God's world. I think that like that's what it is, but like it's not. God took Jesus back up to heaven to prepare a place for us, and that is where we belong. But for right now, we're here. We have a purpose here. And guess what? Your purpose is not to be miserable. God doesn't want that for you, but also you have free will. So you get to choose the things that are going to either make you more joyful or more miserable. And it's way easier to be miserable. And I'm not telling you that because you're doing that. I'm telling you that because I have done that. Losing control and choosing control requires putting stuff into our minds that are going to make us choose control. So if you hang out with a bunch of people who lose control, you're probably not going to choose control. If you hang out with a bunch of people who are encouraging you to not choose control, then you're going to lose control. You enter the things that the friendships that you're in, the relationships that you're in, you enter in because, like I said, no one else controls you, but when you start to be around somebody for a certain amount of time, you start to be like them. And you might not want to be, but you do. That's just what happens because you are who you surround yourself with. And so what we choose to put in our minds daily, even the thoughts that we put into our minds, when we choose to what we put into our minds daily determines what comes out of us in our actions, in our words, in our desires. And that's when our desires don't line up with God's because we're not putting godly stuff in our head. So we're like, oh, if I just pray to God, he'll give me what I want. No, you have to put in your mind godly desires, and then your desires are going to line up with God's desires, and that's when your wills are going to match. Your will is not your will because that's what God wants you to just get everything you want. No, God has a plan for you. You're on the right path because you can't mess up his plan, but you have to put in the work. You have to put things in your minds that are going to bring you closer to that and start to change the way you react to those negative things that you put in your head. So, really quickly, I'm going to just skip a lot of stuff. Well, not a lot of stuff, but I want to talk to you about ways I challenge my thoughts, because placing your thoughts, choosing to fix your thoughts on things that are more excellent, more worthy of praise, it means that you have to start taking action. That's what replacement means. You have to start taking action. You have to allow the thought, don't push it away. Ignoring it and stuffing it is just going to be like putting a dirty dish in the sink and then leaving it there until it smells really bad and you got to clean it up at some point, or your house can smell forever. I don't know. Maybe the ants weed it off if they come hang out with you. But if you put a dirty dish in the sink and you leave it there, that's like ignoring your emotion. For you guys that said you don't have these negative thoughts, you ignoring stuff. And I'm not trying to be sexist here, but I live with a man. I also have a dad. Men tend to stuff a little bit more than women do. And so I'm saying that not so women can be like, you're stuffing your emotions. But so the men in this room, I'm calling you men. All of you. Men. You deserve that. You're men. And you guys have been such men tonight because you have not spoken a word over me. And I'm so happy. So, thank you. High five. Men tend to ignore and stuff a little bit more than women do, and I will tell you, it's a process to get out. So, at some point you're gonna have to deal with it, whether that be now or when you have kids or when you're a teenager or whatever. At some point, if you truly wanna find that joy, then you might have to deal with those things you've stuffed and you've let smell up for so long, because you start to see it when you start examining your life and seeing oh, I didn't react to that too well. Man, if I'm punching a hole in the wall, I probably am not reacting like God would want me to. So that's me examining something's not right with me. I'm choosing to act out of anger. So I need to examine myself and see, why is this happening? What's the root of it? How can I make it different? So some ways that I challenge my thoughts are mental checkups. Sounds a little weird, but I started therapy, that's a little weird too. So I learned to do a mental checkup, asking myself, in your small group, I'm gonna try to hurry. Small group questions tonight are your mental checkup questions. What negative feelings are you feeling? Be honest. If you're not honest in your group, just be honest in your head. What negative thoughts are coming into your head every day? How do they make you feel? And then what do you do with it? And is it true? And we'll talk about how we decide if it's true in just a minute. But the second thing I do, and this was the first thing I ever did to start getting my emotion out and to start letting the negative thoughts come into my brain, but not control me. I started this thing called feeling dumping. It's right here. I don't know if I made it up, but I thought you guys might. Oh, okay, so hold on, Michael, go back one. All right, feeling dumping, second one. Now, I'm gonna get real personal with y'all. I'm gonna read you a journal entry from 2 years ago. I'm not gonna tell you the date because y'all can stalk my Instagram. You're like, she looked happy that day. I'm gonna read a journal entry, and when I read this journal entry to you, I don't want you to feel sad for me. I want you to know that I've struggled when it didn't seem like I was struggling. I want you to know that you're not alone, and I want you to know that you can choose to be different, you can choose to change, you can still live with negative thoughts like I just had yesterday, and be okay, and not believe them anymore. You can struggle with that, but I want to read a journal entry from me from 2 years ago, where I did believe a lot of negative thoughts. It's real depressing, so just bear with me. All right, I'm not gonna cry, I'm just saying this. All right, so this is what it says. Today my stress is high. I never share feeling dumps with anybody. Was that a weird sentence? I don't know. I never share this with anybody. So I did not write this ever thinking it would be shared. But today I was reading my journal and I was like, they need to know this because you do need to know that I've struggled. You do need to know that I'm not standing up here because I have lived this mental health like perfect life, or that me and Chris have perfect life, because we don't. We were married, this is only a couple years ago. So this is what it says. Today my stress is high and my depression seems to be lingering. My thoughts are obsessive and my insecurity about things I can't control are taking over entirely. I'm overwhelmed with sadness and fear and uncertainty. All from the devil, but I didn't write that. This is what I tell myself now. I don't know how to let go of things that I can't control. I don't know how to love or be loved or want love from the person that you gave me. I am a slave to my emotions, and I want to be freed. I want to give up people and things in my life, but I feel like I could physically die. Spiritually, I already feel at my lowest for a while, and I feel dead inside completely. Help me to deal with this and decide to think differently. I know my emotions and actions will follow. All I keep doing is thinking obsessively about things I cannot control. I'm in such a bad place and I can't snap out of it. I don't want to be miserable anymore. I don't want to hate the life that you've given me anymore. I want to love it. I want to be excited again. Help me to find the joy that I once had. I still don't believe or want your will, but help me to believe that. Now, that's feeling dumping. Feeling dumping is something that helps create a space for me mentally where I can get out the things that I feel negatively and I can make room for gratitude dumping. I didn't start this until, not when I was feeling dumping. I'm still feeling dumped, but it sounds a little different than it did then. Gratitude dumping looks like the next slide that we are gonna show. So, it's a little blurry, I'm sorry. This is my, it's okay, you don't need to see my plans anyways, but don't read them, I don't even know what's on there. Chris and Whit forever. We still have to fight this day. That's why I chose to put that. So, gratitude dumping is when you choose to not focus on the negative and you choose to write your favorite thing about that day. This day, not a lot of positive stuff happened, but guess what? At the end of the day, we were friends. And so the positive thing I chose to write for this day, and all I'll remember when I look back on this 4 years from now, is that Chris will live forever. Hopefully. I mean, you know, forget me. Chris is stuck with me for life, you guys. He thinks he can get away, but he can't. So, gratitude dumping. I highly suggest writing, journaling, feeling dumping, gratitude dumping, because if you can start focusing on the things, just like habitually starting to get your mind in a negative place, you can start to change that thought process through awareness, willingness, replacement. You can start to make your habits form to automatic positive thoughts. You will still be aware of the negative thoughts, But you might not believe them like yesterday for me. I had a lot of negative thoughts. I just chose not to believe them. And so you can get to a point, it doesn't happen overnight. This is a lot to give you in one night, but I'm trying my hardest. I want to leave you with a quote. Dr. Caroline Leaf is a cognitive neuroscientist or something. She's amazing. I know that. She is very, very, very cognitive neuroscientist. I wrote it down. And she made a quote that stood out to me. I couldn't find it again anywhere that I tried to look, but I remember it to say, every time we choose to believe a negative thought, we are voluntarily damaging our brain. She described it as if your brain were bubble wrap. Every time you choose to believe a negative thought, you're slowly popping the bubbles on the bubble wrap. And eventually, you get to a place where when somebody bullies you, you let them. When somebody bullies you, you kill yourself. Your parents are left without you. You get to a point where you don't have any bubble wrap left in your head because you've chosen to believe so many negative thoughts from whatever your past looks like. You've chosen to believe so many negative thoughts that you don't even have the bubble wrap in there anymore to be able to make this transformation. You're never too far gone, but it's a choice. It's a choice that you have to choose. You have to start being aware of how you react to things. You have to start being aware of what you're telling yourself and how it makes you feel, and that means being honest with yourself. That means, I'm sorry, but guys, you gotta be honest. Like, if you're sad, like, just say it, man. It's fine. Like, we know you're sad, you just need to say it. So I thought that quote was literally amazing because if we start knowing the truth, which is in God's word, then we will start believing the truth. So when you go to your small group, if you go to your small group, you're gonna answer these questions. If not, you're still gonna give them sent, but at the end of these mental checkup questions, it says, are they true? The thoughts that are in your head, are they true? And we tell ourselves they're true. That's why we believe them. That's why we start to get depressed, why we start to get anxious, because we start to feel so bad about ourselves because we believe so many negative things about ourselves. When we start to believe the things that we tell ourselves are true, guess what? They're not actually true. Because the truth comes from the Bible. And if truth is God, and that's what he tells us he is, we don't get to decide that. God is good. And it doesn't matter what you think. That's what he is. And guess what? The enemy, Satan, is a liar. And he's really good at it. And guess what? He has the second most power, but he only has as much power as you give him. And so if you're giving him a hand, and you're letting him just take you and swing you around the dance floor, he's gonna take you for a dance. And it ain't gonna feel good. And so when these thoughts come in your head, these automatic thoughts, and they make you feel bad about yourself, they're not true. And so if you can start to tell yourself they're not true, don't you think you can start to transform the way that you think about yourself? Because if you're in your head and you know that the truth is set out here, and even if you don't have Jesus in your heart, this is still the truth. So if the truth is here and the truth is good and the liar's bad and the liar hurts and the liar deceives, then what you feel about yourself, you decide if it's true or not. Because it's already decided. It's just what you choose to believe. And if you continue choosing to be a victim to your circumstances, your thought process is not going to change. So we have to armor up. We're not self-pity victims. We're not. But we can be if we choose to be. And I've also been that before too. We are warriors. We have armor. We have to put it on though. No one's gonna dress us. We have to do it. Like I said before, God's not magic. So we have to choose to make that change in our life by knowing the truth and then believing the truth. And that's how our negative thoughts are gonna change. So are your thoughts giving you life, or are they stealing your joy? Are they killing your life? And are they destroying your relationships? Because guess what? In John 10:10, it says that the Lord comes to give us life. The thief, his purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. And in verse 6, I was looking this up before. In verse 6, the verse starts with, I tell you the truth. And it's in red, so Jesus is saying it. And when Jesus says, I tell you the truth, that comes from God. There's another scripture that talks about how when God tells people stuff like this, it's from him. It's not from an earthly person. It's from God. And so when Jesus says, I tell you the truth, you believe it. That's what faith is. You just choose to believe that when Jesus is telling you, I tell you the truth, he predicts his own death. He predicts a lot of things, but I believe him. I do believe him. So he tells us the truth. Then what he's telling you is the thief's purpose is to still kill and destroy. My purpose is to give you a rich and satisfying life. So if your thoughts and your feelings, if your thoughts are not leading to a reaction that is rich and satisfying, then you aren't gonna feel rich and satisfied. If you're letting your thoughts make you feel like your joy has been stolen, you've been killed inside, you've been killed spiritually, like my journal said, or that you're destroying your life, and people are destroying your life, and you're a victim to your circumstances, then guess what? You're probably not believing the truth. You're just believing what, first of all, Satan is telling you, and second of all, you're choosing to believe. So that's where we start to transform. Does that make sense? It's a lot of stuff. I'm really sorry. But it comes with obedience. And that's where we are lazy when it comes to obedience. And so when it comes to obedience, we have to choose to change. I saw at the bottom of my journal, and I'm going to be done with y'all. I'm going to be off the stage in just a minute. Bottom of my journal, I don't even know where this verse came from. I've never even read this verse again. I don't remember seeing it anywhere. I don't even know why I wrote it. But I wrote this verse. It was Psalm 91:15, and it says, I will answer. I put before it that it was a promise. It said, when I was in my darkest, and this journal entry was probably around that time, clearly, I wrote it as a promise, and it's from God, and it says, I will answer your cry for help every time you pray, and you will find and feel my presence even in your time of pressure and trouble. But if you look at this, it says, I will answer your cry for help every time you pray. This means you have to do work. This doesn't mean God's gonna come down and cradle you in his arms and rock you to sleep because you feel bad about yourself. He's not going to, and that sounds really bad, but it's the truth because you have to put in work. You have to start being obedient to God's word. You have to start being obedient to the life that he has for you because guess what? Obedience is not bad. Obedience feels amazing. And when you start obeying God's word, you start to like the things that you feel. You start to like the life, but you have to believe that before you can start to choose that life. So, I'm done with you, but I'm gonna leave you with a video because I was researching, I deal with this too, so I was researching how do you help change your negative thoughts? This random video popped up of this guy named Johnny Crowder. He's amazing, and he is a suicide, I think I get this right, he's a suicide and abuse, physical and mental abuse survivor. He's been through a very, very, very big mental health journey. I can't wait to learn more about him, but he is the founder of Cope Notes. Has anybody heard of Cope Notes? You have? Oh my God, I never heard of it. You have? You guys! Okay, Cope Notes. I'm gonna show you a video on it. It's gonna explain itself, but it is an incredible source if you look into it. So, watch this video.
As a suicide and abuse survivor, I know how complicated life can get. And that's why I wanted to keep Cope Notes as simple as possible. We'll text you once a day, but you never know when we'll reach out or what we'll say. And over time, this trains your brain to default to healthier thought patterns. We'll send you psychology facts, exercises, advice, encouragement, but none of that stuff is gonna change your life. Only you can do that. We're just here to help.
So in that video, Johnny's talking Cope Notes, right? It's this kind of different thing. Actually, FaceTimed him. I Zoomed with him today for a little while because Whit found that last night. She's been praying for y'all a next step. What could it be? Because I know for a lot of us with negative thoughts, we still have them, and they're not going to go away. And Whitney was just the tip of the iceberg. Whitney was just beginning the conversation. You guys enjoy Whitney coming out here and talking with y'all about some of that? Yeah, and she is so passionate about that, and it's so cool to see it in her heart and the journey she's had, the journey we've had as a family. It's amazing. It's awesome. She found Cope Notes last night, and I talked to the guy today, and he would love to talk to y'all, to work with y'all on this. You can go to CopeNotes.com. We're gonna post some stuff on social media about it. I think some of y'all even know about Cope Notes. Maybe that's awesome. But it's a really cool way to get encouragement every day with a text, to replace a negative thought with a positive thought. right? And somebody will be communicating with you, sharing something to encourage you and lift you up. And we're going to share more information with y'all about that. But before, we're going to sing one more song, okay? And we sang this song last week. Hold on. And before you guys stand up, we're singing Resurrender. And I think for a lot of us right now, Whitney did, it was so cool. She was talking about trying to replace those negative thoughts, right? And like trying to get those out of our head. I know for some of us, you just wish you could just shake it and forget it and be gone forever. But it's hard. Like, it's still there. He's still there. The family issue, the health issue, the struggle that you had, the school problem, the job problem, the fitting in problem, the social media issue, the bullying thing, whatever it is, that negative thought, that thing you see in the mirror is still there. And it drives you crazy. What I want to challenge y'all to do right now, all right, for this last 3 or 4 minutes here as we sing this song, I want you to try and surrender that negative thought. Try and replace that negative thought with Jesus. And say, hey, I can't do it on my own. I need your help. So I'm going to resurrender right here to you. I can't do it on my own, but I know you can help me. So I'm going to resurrender it to you. I know I can't control it. It's hard. I'm not going to let it control me anymore. And now I'm going to surrender it right here to you. I gotta hand it to you, Jesus. So surrender it. You can lift your hands. You can have your hands here. You can sing. You can dance. You can just do whatever, however you guys want to do. I'm gonna invite you to stand up silently, because we don't know the negative thoughts people wrestle with right now. So silently as we sing Resurrender, I want to challenge y'all with your negative thoughts right now in this song. Think about surrendering them, giving them back to Jesus right now and letting him replace those in our own lives. And let's sing this song here together. Let's do it.
We surrender your call.